Immediately after any tragedy involving a firearm, we hear calls for more gun control, despite the fact that none of the proposed measures could ever have prevented or even mitigated that event. Now, some are swayed by the emotional argument, but each time we also see a myriad of seemingly logic-based anti-gun arguments. Now, these come in the form of studies and reports funded or conducted by anti-gun groups, and by tried and tired arguments that those of us who have been following for a while just roll our eyes at. But these can sway the uninitiated, and that's why I would like to discuss them now. President Obama recently made the statement that there's been more than 100 school shootings since Sandy Hook. Now, this claim has been thoroughly, consistently, and regularly debunked, but that fact hasn't prevented him or Hillary Clinton or others from regularly quoting it. Now, I've already addressed this particular claim in a video which I'll link below, but since it's still coming up, let me briefly address it again. This was put out by Bloomberg's Moms Demand Action. The original release said 75 school shootings since Sandy Hook and included a map of their data set. Now, this was so outrageously untrue that even CNN felt the need to debunk it. What they and other media outlets found is that they included any discharge of a firearm on or near school grounds, including suicides and negligent discharges and things that didn't even happen on campus. Out of those events, only 15 actually involved one person shooting at another, and even out of those, very, very few would meet any recognizable definition of the term school shooting. Now, the group doubled down a few months later by increasing the number to more than 100 school shootings since Sandy Hook. And again, very few, if any, of these could be considered a school shooting under any recognizable definition. This particular study has been so thoroughly and completely debunked that anybody quoting it has either done zero research or is intentionally being misleading. Recently, President Obama has made several statements to the effect that mass shootings don't happen in other countries or don't happen with the same frequency that they happen here. And it does seem that mass shootings happen a lot here and don't happen so much in other places. First, it should be noted that the U.S. is the third most populated country in the entire world. And it would stand to reason that this type of thing might happen more here than, say, in England, with 1/5 our population. Now, I found two recent studies that determined the per capita rate of mass shootings in advanced countries. And while these two reports vary based on the way they define mass shooting and which countries they include, what's clear in both of these is that the U.S. is not on top. Over here we're number 3, and here we're number 8. Now, this remains true whether you look at the number of people killed or the frequency of events. And if you look at mass murders rather than mass shootings, that is, if you include other means of killing people, then we slide much further down the list. Now, the media focuses a great deal of attention on these events in the United States, dedicating hours and even days of coverage even to false alarms. So it's not much of a surprise that people both here and abroad have the impression that the U.S. is the most violent of all advanced countries. And while we're more violent than some, that impression simply cannot be supported by fact. The reality is these events happen all over the world and at a very similar rate. Perhaps like me, you're beginning to see a pattern here, where anti-gun politicians and groups quote studies and reports that were conducted or funded by anti-gun groups. On the other hand, pro-gun forces tend to quote the FBI, the CDC, the National Academy of Sciences, the Bureau of Justice Statistics, places where there's a standard of data. Draw your own conclusions.